Hello everyone, this is Darcinovia here. This is my video on Game of Thrones Season 8 and what the fuck has happened to what was once one of the greatest shows on television. Isn't it amazing how Game of Thrones was the shit and people couldn't stop talking about how great it was? I'm not gonna lie, the earlier seasons for Game of Thrones were amazing. The first 4 seasons, in my opinion, had some of the best writing, I've seen on television, and some of the best cinematography and the best acting. I mean, Game of Thrones was movie quality in terms of its production value. At times, you forget that it was a TV show and not a movie. Now, I experienced the show before I read the books. So, before you go after me and accusing me of being a book purist, which I will proudly say I am at this point, considering what a fucking dumpster fire this series has become, I'm just going to approach it from a different perspective as something on its own, because there's a lot of people who've watched the show who have never read the books or don't even know it's based off a book, who thinks this show is shit. And for all you fucking fanboys defending the decisions, especially in episode 3 of season 8, should reevaluate yourselves and look at read a book about storytelling, because the final 2 seasons of this series has been objectively awful. Season 7 feels like filler. Season 8 also feels like filler. It's just, there's so many stupid moments that I can't help that but scratch my head. It's like this. It's become fan service, the show. That's essentially what Game of Thrones has become. It's become glorified fan fiction. It feels like these people went on fanfiction.net, read some awful fan fiction that people wrote, and then took ideas from that, just like Ruin Johnson. And in fact, I feel like they took a playbook from Ruin Johnson. And for all you people who claim, it's not called Game of White Walkers, it's called Game of Thrones. Listen, dipshit. The freaking book, the first one, is called a Game of Thrones. Doesn't mean that's what the entire series is about. The White Walkers was an important element of the books and the TV series. For many years, especially in the books, they've been building up for the War of the Long Night. The Long Night was supposed to be a big deal. It's something that we've all were waiting for since the very first episode of Game of Thrones. Now, think about this. How would you feel if you watched a show that was building up a storyline for almost a decade, and for it to end in such an awful way, poof! None of your theories mattered. None of your investment never mattered. All it was subverting expectations. As for Ruin Johnson, fuck you, you piece of shit. I am going to go on record right now, and I'm going to say Game of Thrones Season 8 is worse than The Last Jedi. In every single conceivable way, it is worse than The Last Jedi. Because unlike the sequel trilogy, which was never good to begin with, it was always garbage, there was nothing good about The Force Awakens, Game of Thrones start off as something great. The first season was an amazing start to what was once an amazing series. Season 2 was even better. Season 3 had such amazing moments like the Red Wedding. Season 4, not as good as the first 3 seasons. Still a great season that felt like it was building up to something. Season 5, garbage. The Dorne storyline was awful. Season 6, a little bit better than Season 5, but still had some cringeworthy moments. It was a slight improvement. Season 7 is when the cracks started to show that this show was not the same show that we watched seasons prior. Seasons 8, once and for all, proved even some of the most biggest fanboys of this show can't deny at this point that this show is trash. Everything that was once good about this show is gone. Interesting characters, great cinematography, acting, dialogue. Everything about this show that was once good is gone. And these are the kind of people you trust to make a Star Wars trilogy? I hated these guys since Season 7. I knew Season 7 was trash when I first watched it. And when I found out that these people were involved in the next Star Wars trilogy potentially, I was like, oh my fucking god, just no. I didn't think it would be as bad as the sequel, but holy shit. After the last 2 episodes I've been watching, The Long Night, which is, in my opinion, one of the worst episodes in history. Too bad you can't fucking see a fucking thing. I can't understand how anyone in their right mind would praise The Long Night. You couldn't see a fucking thing in that fucking episode. It was so fucking bad. And Arya just killing the Night King just like that. No fucking injuries whatsoever. No fatal wounding in the process. Because I imagine the Night King, the only way the Night King should be killed is if the person that kills him dies in the process. And here's another thing I find insulting about the Night King. Jon was supposed to be fighting the Night King. Season 5, one of the most epic moments of the show when Jon and the Night King had a stare down. They had it multiple times, heavily foreshadowing that they would eventually have a final epic duel that would determine the fate of all of the world. Nope. Arya saves everyone. It's official. Arya is a bigger Mary Sue than Rey is at this point. This episode has single-handedly ruined the show. If you watch the show now, there's no way you can not think about how all these storylines are going to come to an end. It's like the showrunners, they're so incompetent. There's like very little episodes to go, and most of these questions that we have are not going to be answered. All these character arcs are not going to be resolved. It's just become a glorified fan fiction mess. And the final 2 episodes are probably going to be even worse than the last 2. Here's what I predict is going to happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if I'm right. The next episode will be the Battle of King's Landing. And by the end of the episode, or the beginning of the next episode, Cersei is going to die by Arya. There's no other way. I mean, at this point, it doesn't surprise me. If Arya's heading to King's Landing, and what is she? When she said she had unfinished business, what is that unfinished business? Killing Cersei. I mean, what the fuck is up with Arya at this point? These idiots took what was once a great character from the books, one of my favorite characters, and like Tyrion Lannister, ruined her. She's a shell of her former self. Arya used to be such a great character when the show started, and now she's the worst character in the show. Fuck show Arya. And we know in the next episode or the one after it, we're going to have Conclane Bowl, which is what the fans are calling it. We're going to have that thing that fans have been waiting for since the start of the series. That's just pointless fan service. Do I think Do I care to have it? I don't care, honestly. But considering how much fan pandering it is at this point, it's like this show is so bad. I cannot get over just how much of a shit show this show is. Oh God, season 8 of Game of Thrones is so fucking awful. It's worse than The Last Jedi. This deserves a podcast within itself. For those of you out there who are a fan of the series like I am, or a former fan of the show, I invite you to the very first cinematic atrocities, which Game of Thrones will get the treatment that it deserves. And cinematic atrocities will put this motherfucking season on trial. Because as far as I'm concerned, this show is one of the worst fucking things I've ever seen. It's such a tragedy that one of the best shows on television is now a show that I fucking can't recommend anyone to watch. If you haven't seen the show, don't fucking bother. Read the books if you want to explore the wonderful world of Westeros. If you want to get involved in this amazing universe that George R. R. Martin created. Because I'm telling you, I will not bother with any spin-offs with this fucking series. I will not fucking bother with any sequels if they are made of this fucking series. I will not fucking bother with anything that these motherfuckers created. So, fuck Dumb and Dumber and fuck season 8 of Game of Thrones. I can't fucking believe it. I have fucking 2 episodes to go, and I cannot fucking believe I wasted money to get a temporary membership to HBO just so I could watch this shit. Oh my God. May season 8 of Game of Thrones burn in the bowels of hell. We have 2 episodes to go and 2 more videos on those episodes. So look forward to that. Fuck the first 4 episodes of season 8 of Game of Thrones. Fuck.